Okay, the hour of 10 o'clock having arrived about 17 minutes ago, I call the meeting of September 22nd, 2020 to order. And may I please ask Member DeCiani, would you be kind enough to lead us in the pledge? And then remain standing, everyone, please, for our invocation. Member DeCiani.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all.
I invite Pastor Scott Howington from Pleasant Hill Community Church here in Wheaton to lead us in invocation. Pastor Howington.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we come before you this morning grateful to live in a nation, a state, and a county that is led of a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And this morning we pause for a moment of silence to pay tribute and honor to the memory and legacy of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who worked tirelessly throughout her amazing legal career to assure justice for all. As we continue in prayer, God, we are grateful for how this board has led during these most unique and unprecedented times, and have, along with the many departments, employees under their purview, done all that is possible to keep the residents of this county safe. God, continue to give them wisdom, discernment, and guidance. As this meeting continues this morning, I pray for each member of the board as they represent the people of DuPage County. I pray that whatever the discussions, deliberations, or debates that may take place, that each one under your watchful eye, dear God, would value listening to those they represent and to one another. I pray that each one would value integrity. I pray that each one would put the needs of the county ahead of their own desires. And I pray that the mission to provide desirable places to live, work, and raise families where all are welcomed, accepted, and valued will truly be that which guides these proceedings this morning. May you bless the DuPage County Board this morning. May you bless the many women and men who work day in and day out for the good of this county. May you bless the more than 900,000 individuals who call DuPage County home on this day. Dear God, we are fully aware that you have ordained human government for the purpose of allowing each of us to live quiet and peaceful lives. Remind us today that we ultimately are accountable to you. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Mr. Clerk, Mr. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin.
Here.
Covert.
Here.
Dessart.
Here.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Here. Elliott.
Here.
Hart. Here. Healy. Krajewski. Here. Larson. Here. Noonan. Here. Ozog.
Here.
Pachowski. Here. Renahan.
Here.
Rutledge. Here. Selman.
Here.
Tornatore. Here. Zay.
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and thank you, board members, and thank you to staff. The meeting room looks so well equipped and organized with and safe, most importantly, very safe. All of the spaces here are equipped with plexiglass, and so I want to thank staff once again for all the wonderful work that we've done responding to the pandemic, and so thank you very much. Today I come before you, and I'm going to remove my mask just for purposes of delivering the speech, if you don't mind. Today I come before you for the 10th time as chairman to present my 2021 budget proposal for DuPage County government. I do so recognizing that our lives are vastly different than they were just 6 months ago. This global pandemic has impacted everything we do, including planning for the year ahead. The headline here is, due to strong fiscal management and a history of lean, efficient operations, we are better positioned than most to weather this unprecedented challenge. I am presenting a budget that was balanced the old-fashioned way. We balanced it with hard work and cooperation across all county departments and countywide offices. We utilized conservative revenue estimates, and yet we were able to balance our budget while keeping the property tax rate flat without an increase for the average DuPage homeowner. That said, we will be nimble and prepared to adjust expectations if needed. As you may recall, DuPage County was one of the first in Illinois to deal with the novel coronavirus back in January, when a woman who had traveled to China tested positive for the virus after she visited a healthcare provider here in DuPage County. Since then, with our DuPage County Health Department taking the lead, we've been working to stop the spread of COVID-19 in our communities. Health Department staff provide crucial testing, contact tracing, and medical expertise when nursing homes, hospitals, fire and police departments, employers, schools, and municipalities need help. When the crisis ramped up in March, Health Department Executive Director Karen Ayala and I were among those who joined the governor when he issued a disaster proclamation in Illinois on March 9th. It was important to emphasize then, as it is now, that we all have a role to play in mitigating the impact of COVID-19, the impact that it has on this county. As elected officials, we must come together and act in the best interests of our residents. Public health and public safety are my most important priorities. This budget reflects my determination to do all we can to protect those living, working, and raising families here. As we outline our path forward, it's important to recognize where we've been in the last year. In March, when the governor first announced that schools would be closed, our lives were turned upside down. Together with our elected officials and staff, we implemented plans we've been working on for weeks that would allow those who could to work remotely in order to prevent the spread of COVID here within the county complex. Every single department transformed their operations quickly and efficiently, continuing to provide critical services during these initial disruptive days. My thanks to every department leader, including information technology, which quickly deployed laptops and cell phones. Transportation, facilities, Public Works, and our stormwater departments all pitched in to help where needed. Community services, intake and referral specialists, case managers, and staff assisted tens of thousands of residents as part of our COVID response. Janelle Chadwick, administrator of our DuPage Care Center, has been working all hours of the day and night to ensure the highest level of infection control to protect our most vulnerable residents and the employees taking care of them. The remarkable efforts and those of the creative, dedicated, and determined Care Center staff must be commended and recognized. This budget supports the testing, contact tracing, and enormous amounts of personal protective equipment to maintain the incredibly high standard of care our residents deserve. Janelle and team, please keep up your exemplary work. And thank you for a job well done. Infection control is a big part of the careful planning that Sheriff Jim Mendrick undertook as he utilized decades of experience dealing with infection control in the DuPage County Jail. Thanks to his tireless efforts, we have not seen the spread of COVID-19 as many other correctional facilities have experienced. Sheriff Mendrick, congratulations for demonstrating operational excellence. You and your staff developed and carried out detailed, thoughtful plans to protect employees and inmates from this dangerous virus. While he's been a pivotal member of our team responding to the pandemic, Sheriff Mendrick warned us. He warned us of the threat, not just to our health, but to our public safety. We believe DuPage County has maintained a reputation for public safety and that families move here specifically because it is safe. Collaborating with the sheriff and our state's attorney, it is clear to us that a recent increase in crime, highlighted by violent home invasions, makes it even more important to focus on the safety of our citizens. DuPage County State's Attorney Bob Berlin has proposed, and we will fund, the creation of specialized units focusing on serious crimes here in DuPage County. While the state's attorney's office has always devoted the necessary resources to prosecute crimes, this initiative is designed to coordinate resources to focus on the increasingly complex digital media evidence that each case involves and assure the victims of crime and the community get the full measure of justice to which they are entitled. State's Attorney Berlin's specialized prosecution units will include: 1, a violent crimes unit. This unit will focus on crimes that involve violent acts which have an enormous impact on the community. Murders, vicious assaults, violent home invasions, and carjackings will be assigned to this unit. 2, a special victims unit. This unit will focus on crimes against particularly vulnerable individuals, including children, the elderly, and the disabled. This unit will coordinate their efforts with our Children's Advocacy Center when the crime involves the sexual abuse of a child or minor. And third, a unit dedicated to complex prosecutions. This unit will focus on cases that, due to scientific and forensic evidence, are a little more complicated. The cases will include financial crimes and public integrity cases. These initiatives require no new headcount. Together, our goal is to retain experienced staff through competitive compensation and training and assign them to these new units. In addition, my FY 2021 budget funds the completion of a multimedia room in the state's attorney's office, which will provide an appropriate venue for trial and law enforcement training, as well as act as the nerve center for major crimes investigations. As he stated in his budget presentation, in our digital age, the amount and complex nature of evidence collected requires more time and the appropriate, updated, modernized equipment. In FY 2021, we will upgrade trial preparation rooms with new technology to make the review of digital evidence easier. You may recall that during Sheriff Jim Mendrick's budget presentation, he echoed the state's attorney's concerns about rising crime rates. He warned us that crimes such as burglaries, auto theft, and carjackings were on the rise. He told us that his office has experienced a 40% increase in calls for service and a 54% increase in domestic violence calls. At the same time, our law enforcement works tirelessly to keep our communities safe. They have confronted incidents of civil unrest over the past few months in which their professionalism was certainly tested. Our sheriff's office maintains its commitment to de-escalation training, resolving conflict before situations become dangerous. In FY 2021, we will fund Sheriff Mendrick's innovative training initiative called Policing in a Diverse Society. The program's objective is to create stronger partnerships between law enforcement and the communities we serve. The sheriff will partner with the DuPage, NAACP, Unity Partnership, and the College of DuPage. The training module will utilize student and adult actors to role-play scenarios, providing real-time training for officers. My thanks to Sheriff Mendrick and his team for involving community stakeholders in this important initiative. In fiscal year 2021, we will provide the needed resources so that Sheriff Jim Mendrick and State's Attorney Bob Berlin can fight crime, prosecute those who commit violent acts, and educate our citizens and officers, promoting greater understanding for all. As I've said, public safety and public health are my top priorities, which is why when our county received $161 million in federal funds from the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, or CARES Act, we allocated a significant portion to the DuPage County Health Department. This county board, under the leadership of Finance Chairman Bob Larson, set aside $16.5 million for the DuPage Health Department. The Health Department will continue to serve as our local experts as we battle the coronavirus. CARES funding will support COVID testing, contact tracing, personal protective equipment, allocations to support behavioral health, and preparations for a mass vaccination program. Thanks to our Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, for providing operational support needed to carry out these initiatives. Thanks also to the DuPage County Fairgrounds staff for hosting our local county COVID testing site. $7 million in CARES Act funding is allocated this year to our county's residents in need through our nonprofit partners who provide food, shelter, protection from domestic violence, and supports for residential and behavioral health programs. The stay-at-home order impacts these residents disproportionately. This county board has and will continue to prioritize these essential services and to ensure that these essential services remain a priority. For example, as soon as we learned of a need for emergency housing, this board acted swiftly back in March to support DuPage PADS, Catholic Charities, and Metropolitan Family Services to provide a safe place to stay for those who had been displaced by the interruption in emergency housing programs. Thanks to our Director of Community Services, Mary Keating, and her staff, who reviewed applications and released $1.5 million in federal assistance for 40 nonprofit agencies and $825,000 for residential and behavioral health providers who have expanded services due to the conditions created by the pandemic. Another $1 million in assistance to DuPage food pantries is on the board agenda today. That's a total of nearly $4 million already distributed, and with more in the pipeline. All these recipients are the same groups who would receive our 2021 Human Service grants. Therefore, instead of allocating $1 million from our general fund dollars to these nonprofits in 2021, we will rely on the coronavirus relief funds to support these vital partners. This board has also responded to needs expressed by our municipal partners, whose police and fire departments have incurred millions in costs responding to a wide variety of emergency calls during this most difficult and challenging time. This board, under Finance Chairman Larson's leadership, made thoughtful allocations. The board set aside $43 million for municipal expenses and $2 million for townships, some of whom have local food pantries, which are vital resources for our residents. We will also provide for the COVID expenses incurred by park districts and fire districts in DuPage County. Additionally, the board set aside almost $2 million to assure the county clerk's election division has the equipment, manpower, and supplies needed to operate a safe, accurate election on November 3rd. I've touched on just some of the overwhelming costs of the COVID pandemic. DuPage was among the first counties in Illinois to structure a small business grant relief program to help shore up the important small businesses that are the backbone of our local economy. Thank you to Greg Bedeloff, President and CEO of Choose DuPage, for managing our Reinvest DuPage grant relief program aimed at these small businesses and independent contractors who've been impacted by COVID-19. To date, the program has handed out 753 grants totaling more than $8.4 million, and we expect to distribute all $17 million allocated for this cause. As we see employment beginning to rebound ever so slowly here in DuPage, allow me to share some data. In February, just 7 months ago, the unemployment rate here pre-COVID was 2.6%. In March, when the economy first shut down, the unemployment rate inched up to 3.7%. We hit a high in April of 14.7%. This topped the previous high we had seen of 10.2% in January of 2010 during the Great Recession. The most recent unemployment figures released show the July unemployment rate in DuPage County fell to 9.6%. So you can see we have a long way to go, but we are seeing some improvement, and we expect that path and that trajectory to continue. There is a corresponding drop in sales tax revenue as well. In FY 2019, we received more than $101 million in sales tax revenue. For fiscal year 2020, we anticipate collecting a little more than $95 million. Our revenue projections for 2021 collections are conservatively estimated, including those that will come from court fees and fines, which we expect to be reduced. So what does this mean? Well, it means that while we fully fund the most vital services, we will cut back in other areas. For example, as I mentioned earlier, we will rely on federal CARES Act funds to provide support to many of our social service providers, and as a result, our Human Services Grant Fund won't be necessary to be funded out of the general fund. We will save an estimated $600,000 by asking employees to hold off selling back vacation time and allowing them to roll it over into the next calendar year. The Sheriff's Office will contribute a general fund savings of $436,857 by outsourcing radio dispatch to the Addison Consolidated Dispatch Center effective December 1. We will defer new vehicle purchases and instead outfit new vehicles the Sheriff's Department received last year to put them into service in FY 2021. And for the first time in several years, my budget proposal does not include a cost of living increase for our employees. That said, please recognize that due to a strong fiscal management over the past 10 years, we can weather this extremely challenging financial situation without taking draconian measures such as layoffs or furloughs of employees, despite significant decreases in anticipated revenues. Throughout my tenure, the total headcount here in DuPage has been reduced in areas where it made sense, incorporating the outsourcing of the Sheriff's radio dispatch and a reorganization in the County Facilities Department earlier this year. Our headcount for FY 2021 remains stable at 2,195. My goal is to keep the county staffing steady at current levels and improve funding in areas where we're making strategic investments in public safety and law enforcement. We will do all of this without increasing our homeowners' property taxes. It's clear from the feedback we received that thousands of our residents are struggling. We will not add to their burden. Therefore, the property tax levy will be adjusted slightly by $500,000 to $69 million, enough only to capture new growth and properties added to the tax roll. The average homeowner's tax rate will stay the same in FY 2021. When we began our budget process, we received requests $16 million higher than our anticipated lower revenues this year. To help balance the budget, we asked each department head and elected official to trim back their requests to do it themselves, giving them the latitude they needed as they considered the realities of our budget picture, to allow them to exercise leadership and the discretion that they see is necessary. We also carefully balanced these reductions against our conservative revenue estimates, which are based on the latest sales tax data that came in after the stay-at-home order was gradually lifted in the early summer. Due to our prudent stewardship of our residents' tax dollars, we will be able to balance this year's budget and make key investments without touching our fund balances, which remain healthy. Therefore, this year's budget is $479.7 million. Our general fund, which is the source of dollars which fund public safety, community services, our judicial system, the care center support, and county infrastructure, will move from $183.8 million in FY 2020 to $177.9 in FY 2021, which is about a 3% reduction. Balancing a budget during a pandemic is difficult, painstaking work. I can't thank our finance chairman, Bob Larson, enough for your remarkable patience, your diligence, your dedication to the finance process, and the careful allocation of federal CARES money. Thank you, Bob Larson. Also, thanks to our vice chair, Jim Zay. Your operational expertise and budget wisdom and experience have been instrumental in developing this plan. And a special note of thanks to our new CFO, Jeff Martinovich, who jumped in at a critical time in our budget development and has done a marvelous job leading that department, and also to Jennifer Sin. I want to thank her and the entire finance department staff. So today, I've laid out a plan prioritizing public safety and law enforcement, public health, and providing a strong social service safety net. Never have we been asked to squeeze as much value from our tax dollars as we have today. This year in particular, people's lives depend on us making the right investments. I now turn this spending proposal, I now turn it over to you for your consideration. I believe it provides the resources to keep DuPage County safe and healthy as we plan for today's critical needs and lay the groundwork for new business activity, a thriving local economy, safe communities, and a county that remains one of the healthiest in the state of Illinois. Please join me in moving DuPage County ever forward. Thank you. Okay, so we move to the next item on our agenda, and I believe that is public comment. And pursuant to the governor's executive order, I'll entertain a motion to permit the members of the board attending by telephone to participate and vote in the meeting, and also so moved. Second, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. So with that, we have a few folks seeking recognition this morning on the order of public comment. First and foremost, we have Porus Dadabhoy from Downers Grove with an organization entitled United for Peace.
Thank you, sir. My name is Porus Dadabhoy, and I'm here to talk about racial justice and equity, which is related to nonviolence and civil disobedience. We are a coalition of organizations with a mission to bring respect for all and bring unity and peace to all our communities. We believe in nonviolence and work to reduce violence and polarization in our society. We stand in support of racial justice and equity. We acknowledge the systemic injustices that minority communities have been subjected to and offer our support to programs that address them. We strongly believe in nonviolent methods of social change and follow the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and others who achieved social change through nonviolence. We would encourage demonstrations, however, to be peaceful for all the groups organizing protests, to ensure, however, that there is no violence, no looting or destruction of property. Amongst our organizations are United for Peace, the Gandhi Foundation out of Stanford, California, Nonviolence Works, Gandhi 150 Stamp Commemorative, Sacred Ground Ministries, Center of Pluralism in Washington, D.C., Indivisible in Elk Grove Village and surrounding communities, diversity dinners in DuPage, national and international, and we have the support of NAACP also. What happened in Louisville and Kenosha, hopefully we wish that it doesn't happen in Aurora or Naperville, but we are a common people with a common landmass. I am glad to inform you that the city of Memphis this week has begun a week of nonviolence to confront the challenges of violence due to the effects of poverty, hunger, racism, brutality, and domestic violence, and other forms of inhumanity. I ask you to join these efforts in all 50 states and across the nation and the world in building a culture of peace and happiness. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Stephanie Downs Hughes from an organization called Diversity Dinners with Racial Justice Coalition.
Fostering respect for all, unity and peace in our communities is what draws us together in the coalition that Porras Databoy described to you. We're a coalition of organization leaders and entire memberships dedicated to practicing and building social justice and equity for people of all kinds of identities, heritages, orientations, abilities. Racial justice concerns, of course, are at the fore for all of us now. I want to tell you a little bit about our diversity dinners groups. We've been working through social justice issues here in our area since 1997. In diversity dinners, each mixed group of 10 meets about monthly, taking turns hosting at home for wide-ranging discussions over cooperative dinners. People who otherwise might be strange to each other can get to know and understand and like each other. People with different perspectives can explore differences and discover common ground. In this time of COVID-19, full groups of 10 are not meeting inside, of course, but small groups have been able to social distance in the open air. And when safe, full diversity dinners groups, and when it's safe, will resume. Diversity dinners are a means that we community residents can use for peace building, along with explanatory nonviolent demonstrations. And we are appreciative of you, our community leaders, police, and social workers, to ensure orderly and productive, respectful and gentle behavior toward all peaceful demonstrators. We count on you to offer to meet in advance with demonstration organizers to plan and to coordinate with other levels of authority to do this. Toward any vandals, rioters, or looters, be resourceful yet gentle and firm. Use non-lethal measures, exercising discretion sensitively in complicated situations. We work with Unity Partnership that Chairman Cronin described to you and are actively lobbying for police licensing and 2-year recertification, body cameras, and changes to the qualified immunity. In conclusion, there are 3 general principles that can guide each and all of us. Be willing to share fairly resources, prerogatives, and opportunities. Second, use win-win-win negotiation for collaborative decision-making involving representatives of all stakeholders. And commit to meet at least the basic needs of all, that all may thrive and prosper. We appreciate all that Chairman Cronin summarized that you are doing so sensitively and wisely. We thank you for letting us share these general ideas and really appreciate your good work.
Thank you. Paul Scott from NAACP Unity Partnership.
To confirm support for our police partners in the face of very difficult challenges, and to express our commitment to the effort to build trust between the police and all the citizens they serve, but especially those from traditionally marginalized and disaffected communities. With so many extrajudicial killings of citizens, where it won't surprise you that such killings disproportionately take Black lives, we mourn the impact of bad policing and bad policies on those officers who entered their profession for the right reasons and who might now feel some remorse over their career choices. We want you to know that help is here from Unity Partnership through the efforts that we have taken. You cannot talk seriously about policing in our country without talking about race. You also can't talk about race honestly without discussing structural social inequality. The disproportionate numbers of killings of people of color, and particularly Black Americans, then, is a symptom of a larger problem. The police, as the most visible face of our cities and the dumping point in many instances for societal failures, are the face of repression and perpetuation of long-standing practices at the heart of many of the problems that continue to plague us. Fair and impartial policing must be the standard, and it must be part of a comprehensive solution that starts outside police departments with the municipalities that fund and guide police policy. As we continue our mission to humanize the marginalized to the police and vice versa, the initiative that brings us here today is to add local governments to the center of the work. We ask that government lead where it does not now and support the reforms coming soon as a paradigm about which we can all be proud. A couple of examples follow. Field a diverse police force. This requires deliberate action, and villages can help by also fielding diverse workforces. All things being equal, a prospective officer might be inclined to join a police agency where she sees people who look like her in jobs around her city. Being a welcoming community. Quote, "We are not unwelcoming," is not an appropriate response to the challenge of being a welcoming community. Don't put equity and equality in a corner in one person's job description. Make it everybody's job. Finally, lead by helping those in the community and employees who find it hard to leave behind old ideas and old ways of thinking. Engage. We seek broad support for improvements, some of which require spending and some of which require a new way of imagining public safety. All are designed to promote transparency, to actively pursue diverse community involvement, and ultimately to build trust. We are seeking body cams for officers. We are recommending implementation of citizen collaboration boards. We are pursuing police officer licensing, and we're promoting independent investigation of police use of deadly force incidents to start. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our public comment. I'm going to turn these over to my deputy clerk, our deputy clerk. So we move on to the order of business entitled consent. Oh, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. We do have a couple of commenters, public comment, forgive me, please, that weighed in via internet. So please proceed, Mr. McCarthy.
First comment is from Rebecca McLean. It's regarding do not allow permit for abusive fairgrounds animal exhibitor. It states, I am concerned that the companies who lease the fairgrounds that held cruel petting zoos, animals as prizes, and animal photo ops at the fairgrounds are pressuring the village for an 18-month extension. Please do not cave to this, and please deny this permit. Thank you. Concludes her comment. Next comment's from Karen Daly. It's regarding ramification and impact of referendum questions. It states, Dear Board, I would like to request additional information about the impact of the ballot referendum questions on the Board's work. First, it should be noted that the referendum questions are written in a very slanted way, which I'm guessing was the intent. Were these questions vetted with any voters to see how one might view the wording? For example, the second question, in order to fight the spread of COVID-19, shall DuPage County obtain a stockpile of personal protective equipment for distribution to nursing homes, first responders, healthcare providers, and at-risk communities who are not otherwise able to obtain personal protective equipment? So who would say no to that? And isn't this a decision we pay you to make with your knowledge of the needs of this equipment and understanding the budget trade-offs and availability of federal funding opportunities? What exactly is the intent of asking voters this question? Second, and more importantly, voters need to understand the ramifications of a yes-no vote for any of these written questions. How would voting yes impact budget allocations? What about policy decisions? Why hasn't the board published any information about the impact of these results on these questions? The voters need to know if their yes or no vote on these questions will justify decisions that the general public were not aware of when answering these questions. Does a vote for making law enforcement and public safety a number one budget priority then give the board a right to create a more militarized police force? Does it mean that a budget would be allocated away from community policing programs? Doesn't public safety also include public health initiatives? What impact would a yes or no vote mean there? And to this end, why isn't there anything published on the county website, the county site that discusses any of this so voters can make an informed decision? If you did your homework on these ballot questions, then let us see the results. All in all, given the slanted nature of the questions and the voters' complete lack of understanding of the impact of a yes or no vote, I call into question the legitimacy of the entire process. Thank you for your attention. That concludes her comment. Last comment is from Jennifer Thompson. It's regarding Willow Creek Public Water and Sewer variance. It states, I am in favor of the public water and sewer variance request. Willow Creek Church will be a welcome addition to the community. That concludes the comments I have.
Okay, thank you very much. And that concludes the public comment. Moving on to the consent item on the agenda.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Selman.
Aye.
And Tornatore.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. On to the order of County Board. Member Jim Zay.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. We have some appointments today. First, I'd like to combine items A through E. These are all one new appointment and 4 reappointments to the Board of Health.
Been a motion to combine items A through E. Is there a second? Yes, there is. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed,
Thank you,
Mr. Zay.
Chairman. I move on CBR 52320, the appointment of Janice Geiger to the Board of Health. CBR 52420, the appointment of Robert Spendani to the Board of Health. Spendoni, the Italian Spendoni. Move on CBR 52520, the appointment of Lawrence Scouten to the Board of Health. CBR 52620, the appointment of San Tornatore to the Board of Health. And CBR 52920, the appointment of Robert Larson to the Board of Health. Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Selman.
Aye.
And Tornatore.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move on CBR 52720, the appointment of James Groby to the West Chicago Fire Protection District.
Leave is granted. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on CBR 52820, the appointment of Roger A. Wood to the Naperville Fire Protection District.
Leave is granted. Mr. Zay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move on CBR 53020, the appointment of Andrew Luck to the Roselle Fire Protection District.
Leave is granted. Thank you, Mr. Zay. A fine report. On to the order of finance. Member Bob Larson, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, again, as I said in finance this morning, I want to thank the staff for the tremendous job they did working us through this budget process this year and for next year's process. It's been extraordinarily complicated and difficult given the circumstances that we faced. Incredible work done by Nick and Cheryl and Joan, by Jeff Martinovich, despite the issues he's had to face personally, by Jennifer Sin, by his whole staff. I also want to thank, as I said this morning, my colleagues. I appreciate the work that we all did coming together, Democrats, Republicans, all of us worked together to work through this process, to work through the CARES Act. I thought our meeting on the CARES Act was our greatest moment as a board. I was very proud of the work that we've done to use those dollars to help the people of DuPage County. And I also want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership on this issue in working to get to where we are today. It is an example, as I've said many times, of what good government looks like. I think if everybody around the country looked at the way we do things in DuPage, we wouldn't see the violence we see, we wouldn't see the financial catastrophes we see, and we'd see a better health outcome than you see in almost any other place in the country. It is a great team that we have between staff and the chairman and this board, and I'm proud of the work that we've done.
Thank you.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I would move to combine agenda items A through I.
There's a motion and a second to combine items A through I. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed, Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then move approval of the following acceptance and appropriations of various grants. First, FIR 51820, the Sustained Traffic Enforcement Program grant in the amount of $31,280. FIR 51520, the WIOA National Dislocated Worker Employment Recovery Grant in the amount of $528,000. FIR 51720, the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity Workforce Innovation Grant in the amount of $4,765,344. FIR 50920, the Home Investment Partnership Program grant for fiscal year 20, which is being increased to $6,232,323. FIR 51020, the appropriation for additional funding for the 46-year Community Development Block Grant for now a new total of $9,572,387. The HUD 2019 Continuum of Care Resolution in the amount of $188,060. The HUD 2019 Continuum of Care Planning Grant for year 21 in the amount of $142,340. FIR 50520, which is an extension of the HUD 2018 Continuum of Care Planning Grant, and FIR 50820, amending the amount of the 32nd Year Emergency Solutions Grant to $513,405.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Larson.
Aye.
Noonan.
Aye.
Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. And Krajewski.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of FIR 52020, which is authorization for a contract with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150.
Mr. Pachowski seeking recognition, please.
Sorry, I wanted to just raise my hand so you saw me. So go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, that's all right. Authorization for the contract with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150.
Mr. Pachowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Local 150 represents public and transportation supervisors, and I want to recognize and thank not only staff but Local 150. We settled this contract with a few phone calls, no drawn-out negotiations, and no attorney's fees, and very little staff time. Local 150 is the only union to ratify contract amendments that reflect the change in policy on selling vacation for fiscal year 20 and 21. It recognizes a very challenging budget and revenue forecast.
It's a 4-year contract, has a Me Too clause and merit component in the out year of the contract. So I want to thank staff and most of all Local 150 for a great job.
Yeah, and you deserve commendation for your leadership, Mr. Pachowski. Thank you very much. Mr. Larson. Okay, so there's been a motion and a second, a little bit of discussion here. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Actually, I think we have most favorable.
Oh, we do. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Request for leave. Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then move to approval of FIR 52120, approval of a payment to the ETSB. This is a COVID item.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of FIR 53620, approval of payment to the DuPage County Health Department in the amount of $629,727.37.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of FIR 52220, ratification of an emergency procurement of goods and services.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then move to combine agenda items N through Q.
Been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed, Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then move approval of the following grant agreements, which are all COVID items. First, FIR 53420 to the Northern Illinois Food Bank in the amount of $625,000. FIR 53320 to Loaves and Fishes in the amount of $125,000. FIR 53220 to People's Resource Center in the amount of $125,000. And FIR 53120 to West Suburban Community Pantry in the amount of $125,000.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of FIR 53520, placing names on payroll.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then, this is another of our issuance of payments. You've talked this morning about the payments we've already made to the program. This is another $2.8 million that's going to go out to businesses in need throughout the community under our Small Business Relief Grant Program. As I've said in finance before, I don't think I've had the opportunity to say this at County Board. I really appreciate the work of Choose DuPage, as well as the private citizens and bankers and other people who participated in the review board to go through these. They've dedicated a lot of their personal time to do this and done a remarkable job in turning this around very quickly, so we've gotten this money out there to help people. Choose DuPage was able to adjust on the fly when we changed the program a little bit to allow in businesses that had already received payments under the Paycheck Protection Program. So it's been a tremendous success so far. And with that, I would move approval of FIR 53720, issuance of payments.
Leave is granted. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I didn't see it. Member Dessart.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to commend Greg Bedeloff and Choose DuPage for getting the money out so quickly. I was hearing from another local county, and they have a very similar program with relief grants of up to $15,000. So it's very much like ours. I think it's based off of ours, actually. And they have not actually given out a dime yet. Their money is still in the bank, not actually helping people. I mean, it's there, and they intend to give out the money, but just the speed with which we have helped these small businesses and gotten those checks cut is very impressive. So I just wanted to thank all involved as well.
Very nice. Thank you. Anyone else seeking recognition? Seeing none, hearing none. Mr. Larson?
Nothing further, I think.
All right, there was a motion and a second and a request for leave. Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would then move approval of FIR 53820, revision to the Personnel Policy Manual regarding telework.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move approval of FIR 53920, budget transfers of various companies and accounting units.
Leave is granted. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And finally, I move approval of FIO 6920, amendment to the Recorder Document Storage Fund fee.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. A fine report. On to the order of development, Mr. Sam Tornatore.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of DCO 64-20, ordinance Z 1990. This is to approve a variation to reduce a lot size as well as a variation to reduce lot width. It's important to note that this was denied by a zoning hearing officer. However, the petition was approved by the Development Committee 6-0. Because of the denial by the zoning hearing officer, it will require a 3/4 majority this morning to pass.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, there's a motion by Mr. Tornatore, seconded by Mr. Pachowski. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Tornatore.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart,
Aye.
DeCiani, Eckhoff, Elliott,
Aye.
Hart, Healy, Krajewski, Larson, Noonan, Ozog,
Aye.
Pachowski, Renahan,
Aye.
Rutledge, and Selman.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Tornatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of DC 066-20, ordinance C 2048, approval of a conditional use to allow an existing shed to remain on the premises.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Finally, I move approval of DC 067-20, ordinance Z 2049, to approve a conditional use, again, to allow an existing shed to remain where it has existed for more than 5 years.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Tornatore. On to the order of economic development, member Tim Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the way of a committee update, I want to acknowledge that at our last meeting, we had a tremendous presentation by Colette Holt of CH Advisors, and she laid out the pathway forward as DuPage County explores creating more economic opportunities for our small businesses and our women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. I think everyone who participated in that meeting appreciated it. I know that a copy of her report was circulated to all of the board members, but we look forward to moving forward with that process. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of EDR 51320, a resolution to approve the issuance of payments by DuPage County to training providers through the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. We owe a grant in the amount of $129,000.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second by Mr. DeCiani, I believe. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Elliott,
Aye.
Hart, Healy, Krajewski, Larson, Noonan, Ozog,
Aye.
Pachowski, Renahan,
Aye.
Rutledge, Selman,
Aye.
Tornatore, Zay, Chaplin, Covert,
Aye.
Desart,
Aye.
DeCiani, and Eckhoff.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Elliott.
Mr. Chairman, I would move passage of EDR 51420, a resolution to approve the issuance of payments. This is another Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity recovery grant, this one in the amount of $330,000.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Request for leave. Leave is granted. Mr. Elliott.
Mr. Chairman, I would move passage of EDR 516-20, resolution to approve the issuance of payments by DuPage County to training providers and youth contracts through the Workforce Innovation and Economic Opportunity Act. This in the amount of $1,824,236.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. A request for leave. Leave is granted. Mr. Elliott.
And finally, Mr. Chairman, I would move passage of EDR 519-20, a resolution for financial commitment in support of the Workforce Partnership of Metropolitan Chicago in the amount of $14,000.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Request for leave from member DeCiani. Leave is granted. Thank you very much, Tim Elliott. A fine report. On to the order
Mr. Chairman.
of environmental, member Liz Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to entertain a motion to discharge committee.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The ayes have it. Please proceed, member.
Thank you,
Chaplin.
Chairman. I would like to entertain a motion on ENP 0257-20, recommendation for the approval of a contract to Tradebee Environmental Services LLC for household hazardous waste collection event in the amount of $150,000, not to exceed $150,000.
So moved. To start, so moved.
That would be seconded. So there's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Chaplin,
Aye.
Covert,
Aye.
Desart,
Aye.
DeCiani, Eckhoff, Elliott,
Aye.
Hart, Healy, Krajewski, Larson, Noonan, Ozog,
Aye.
Pachowski, Renahan,
Aye.
Rutledge, Selman,
Aye.
Tornatore, and Zay.
Okay, thank you.
you,
Resolution is
Chairman.
adopted. Thank you, Member Chaplin. A fine report. On to the order of Health and Human Services, Member Sam Tornatore.
Good morning once again, Mr. Chairman. I would move approval of HHR 51220. It's a recommendation for a fifth modification to extend the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Agreement.
Second, Desart.
There's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Tornatore.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. And Selman.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Tornatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move to combine items B through F. These are recommendations to approve contracts to the Care Center, Community Services, and Veterans Assistance Commission.
There's a motion to combine items B through F. All those in favor say aye. Opposed,
Aye.
nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed,
Thank you,
Mr.
Chairman. I
Tornatore.
move to approve HHSP 246-20, a recommendation of contract to Healthy Air Heating and Air, Inc. to provide architectural weatherization and labor. Move to approve HHP 247-20, a recommendation for a contract to Healthy Air Heating and Inc. to provide mechanical HVAC weatherization, labor, and materials. I move to approve HHSP 248-20, a recommendation to approve a contract to Chicago United Industries to furnish, deliver, and install Energy Star appliances. Move to approve HHSP 249-20, a recommendation for approval of a contract to Packaging Hero for disposable corrugated trays. And move to approve HHSP 250-20, a recommendation for approval of a contract purchase to Base Suburban Bus for $45,561 for Department of Human Services and Veterans Assistance Commission.
Been a motion, a second, a request for leave. Leave is granted. Thank you, Mr. Tornatore. On to the order of Judicial Public Safety, Member Grant Eckhoff.
I would move approval of JPS 251-20, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order of Sentinel Offender Services, LLC, for electronic monitoring services.
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Eckhoff.
Aye.
Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatore. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
And DeCiani.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Thank you. Member Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move approval of JPS 252-20, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order to Public Safety Direct, Inc. for upfitting and repairs to the sheriff's vehicles.
Leave is granted. Mr. Eckhoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move approval of JPS 253-20, recommendation for approval of contract purchase order of Microgenics for drug testing.
Leave is granted.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Eckhoff. Another fine report. On to the order of Public Works, Member Jim Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, in 2 weeks, because next week's a fifth week or the fifth Tuesday of the month, traffic court will be discussed further at the Public Works Committee. I'm pulling item number B. We're asking for additional documentation. I gave that to Jim this morning, and he will be providing it to the auditor and to
So with leave of the body, Mr. Healy is seeking approval to remove item B from today's agenda. Seeing no objection, please proceed, Mr. Healy.
I'd like to combine items A, C, and D.
There's a motion and a second to combine items A, C, and D. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The items are combined. Please proceed,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman, I
Healy.
move for approval of ETSR 5720, a license agreement between the county and ETSB and new singular wireless for new AT&T antenna and equipment on the existing 260-foot support tower. Oh, I'm sorry. Got to keep going. Move for approval of EFMP 24420, a contract to Golf Acquisitions for priority repairs at the 479 and 509 parking decks. And FMP 24520, contract to General Mechanical for replacement of refrigerator and freezer equipment in the coroner's office.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there a request for leave?
You have to take a,
Oh, yes, that's right. We took item B out of the record. So, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Healy.
aye.
Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge.
Aye.
Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
And Hart.
Okay, very nice. The resolutions are adopted. Thank you, Mr. Healy. On to the order of technology, Mr. Greg Hart.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just two items today. First, I move on TEP 254-20, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order Johnson Controls U.S. Holdings LLC.
There's been a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Hart.
Aye.
Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog.
Aye.
Pachowski. Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. And Elliott.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move on TEP 256-20, recommendation for the approval of a contract purchase order to Gartner, Inc. for the annual subscription of Gartner for IT leaders.
Leave is granted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Fine report. On to the order of transportation. Member Don Pachowski.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I had moved to approve DTP 23720, a contract to K-Tech Specialty Coatings, Inc. for de-icing liquids not to exceed $63,900.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan. Renahan. Rutledge. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. Ozog.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Mr. Pachowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to approve DTP 23820, a contract to Priority Products, Inc. for hydraulic fittings and hoses.
There's been a motion, a second. Request for leave. Leave is granted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 23920, a contract to BLA Inc. for professional construction engineering services not to exceed $715,216.06 for professional services vetted through a qualification-based selection process pursuant to the Illinois Local Government Professional Service Selection Act.
Leave is granted. Mr. Pachowski.
Was that C? Excuse me?
That was C.
I would like the opportunity for a voice vote here, please, Chairman.
Okay, let's reconsider this. There's been a motion and a second. And on item C, DTP 23920, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin.
No.
Covert. Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
No.
DeCiani. Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. And Ozog.
No.
Okay. All right, the resolution is adopted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 24020, a contract to Iteris Inc. for professional traffic engineering assistance and signal coordination and timing.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Pachowski.
Aye.
Renahan.
Aye.
Rutledge. Selman.
Aye.
Tornatori. Zay. Chaplin.
Aye.
Covert.
Aye.
Desart.
Aye.
DeCiani.
Yes.
Eckhoff. Elliott.
Aye.
Hart. Healy. Krajewski. Larson. Noonan. And Ozog.
Aye.
Okay, the resolution is adopted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve DTP 24120, a contract with V3 Companies, Inc. for professional Phase 2 engineering services.
Okay, there's a motion, a second request for leave on this item. Leave is granted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve change order DTP 68820, amendment to a resolution issued to Primavera Engineers Limited for engineering services for the 2020 Pavement South program.
Leave is granted. Mr. Pachowski.
Move to approve authorization for travel for the Director of Transportation and County Engineer to travel to Peoria to attend and present at the 2020 Executive Forum.
Leave is granted. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pachowski. Another fine report. We move on to the next order of business entitled Discussion. We're all familiar with this. We're required by state law, the pension obligation projections under the Local Government Wage Increase Transparency Act. Is anyone seeking recognition for purposes of discussion? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? I see none, hearing none. We move on to the next order of business entitled Old Business. Old business. Just business that may have occurred previously. Doesn't really have to be old necessarily. I see Member Selman seeking recognition. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to briefly remind the board members that Giving DuPage is hosting a blood drive. Everyone received an email. Thank you, Cheryl, for sending that on Wednesday. Where there are donation sites all throughout the county in each district. So please take the time to share on your own personal pages, share with your families. Blood donations are a really great way to make sure we're still supporting our hospitals. You know, we've done the PPP work, we've got this flu shot program. This is another way to make sure that our hospitals are ready for the winter and fall. So please go check that email and sign up if you can. Thank you, Chairman.
Very nice. Thank you, Member Selman. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of old business? I see young Mr. Tornatori standing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't mention this a while back because being the superstitious person that I am, I wanted to make sure it would pass. But Member Selman called me about 5 or 6 weeks ago with a suggestion dealing with possibly using some CARES money for flu shots. Thought it was a great idea. We talked to Bob Larson, who was able to work through the Finance Committee and the CARES dollars, talked to Karen Ayala at the Health Department, who facilitated some work with the DuPage Health Coalition, and we were able to allocate $300,000 for flu shots for uninsured and underinsured people, and not luck would have it, but Walgreens has also agreed that they will chip in the event that the money that we've allocated isn't enough. What this does is obviously take care of those people who are in need of flu shots and can't otherwise afford it, which is particularly important given the season and given the pandemic. Just wanted to congratulate and thanks Ashley and Bob and Karen for working this through. It's another example of a variety of governmental agencies working together to get something done for our people. So thanks to everyone.
Very nice, Member Salmon, Member Tornatori, and Larson. Okay, anyone else seeking recognition on the order of old business? Old business. Okay, we move to the order of business entitled New Business, and if I may, I'd like to kick it off, please. Just a couple quick notes on the order of new business. I know you will join me in congratulating Lisa Smith. Lisa Smith has been recently named the Chief of the Civil Division in the DuPage County State's Attorney's Office. Many of you know Lisa, as she has served with the State's Attorney's Office since, I think, 2008. She took over following the retirement of Greg Vasey. You remember Greg used to sit here. So I want to recognize Lisa, and to the Criminal Division Chief, Nancy Donahoe. These are two outstanding professionals. Nancy Donahoe took over last year as Chief of the Criminal Division. Both remarkably talented people, really accomplished, and oh yes, they happen to be women, and it's the first time that both division chief titles have been held by accomplished professionals who happen to be women, and so we're really thrilled, and we like to sort of shine a little spotlight on that. We're lucky to have talented people like Lisa and Nancy working for the people of DuPage. Secondly, She doesn't officially retire until October 2nd, but please allow me to add my voice, and I know all of you will add your voices here, in thanking Mary Becker for her outstanding work in the county board office. Mary has been a tremendous resource, not just for me and the executive staff, but also for our administrative staff throughout the county. Mary, please accept my thanks not only for your excellence as an administrative assistant, but on behalf of the many board members who have thoroughly enjoyed you and your help and your work, and not to mention those delectable baked goods that you have provided from time to time and shared with us in the county board kitchen. Your many, many talents will be missed. Congratulations on your accomplishments. I think we as an institution are better because of your service. Congratulations on your retirement, Mary Becker. Okay, so if there's anyone else that has anything on the order of new business? Yes, please, Mr. DeCiani.
Thank you. Let me take my mask off real quick. Just wanted to acknowledge, yesterday I had the privilege alongside Dr. Richard Jorgensen to feed our COVID heroes yesterday. We were at Elmhurst Hospital, and with a partnership of Francesca Zamicis and Armands and the Greco family and Vero Gelato, we fed about 175
Nice.
COVID heroes, nurses, doctors, patient care techs, anybody that's touched the COVID patient at Elmhurst Hospital. And we also fed our fire department and police department. So I'd like to thank those food partners that came through with all donations. Cost nothing to put that together. This is a community effort of community leaders that wanted to recognize the people on the
Very
front
nice.
lines that have been putting themselves in a tough position during this time. And so again, it was a great day to celebrate. Pam Dunley from the CEO, President and CEO of Elmhurst Hospital, was out there to accept the meals and was very appreciative, and it was a good day at Elmhurst. Thank you.
Very nice, very nice, Pete, very nice. Anyone else seeking recognition? Member Zay, Jim Zay.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You had briefly brought it up, but you can notice there's been some changes here in the boardroom. Just want to thank Tim Harbaugh, Nick Cottenmeyer, Evan Shields for their work. I'll be sending an email out about kind of the seating arrangements, and if those people who are not coming, those board members who are not coming in, if they feel like they're going to come in, but we'll have to redo the seating a little bit, so expect an email. But I want to thank staff. We finally, got some little better protection that we had, and I think the larger committees like JPS and some of them, when they have bigger presentations, will be doing them in here, so we're not jammed into 3,500 A and B.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank staff for their hard work on getting this done.
It's very
Thank
nice,
you.
very safe, I believe. Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a very long and involved process to get ourselves to the point we are today with the budget. I didn't want to steal the chairman's thunder, so I didn't talk to the board members about the remarkable efforts we had and the success we had in the budget that we are going to be presenting. But back when we were discussing it, it looked a lot more dire, and folks wanted to have a special call to discuss that budget after this meeting. I am still willing to conduct such a special call finance committee meeting if that is the will of the board, or we can go through our normal process and discuss it as we go forward over the next 2 months at any finance committee meeting at any time anyone wants to do that. But I did want to take the temperature, the will of the board in terms of whether they wanted to conduct a special call meeting next Tuesday to go through the budget, or if we want to work it through our normal finance committee process.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Larson. That's a nice and generous offer. Once again, demonstrating our commitment to being thorough and inclusive here at the board level, of course, without a doubt. And
we can take a sense of the board vote, or we can do that
Well,
by email if we'd rather do that.
yeah, why don't I see Member Chaplin seeking recognition? Member Chaplin.
I was just going to say thank you to Member Larson. That's a very generous offer, and I appreciate it. And I think it would be very helpful to have that special call next Tuesday. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. I would be in strong favor of that.
Okay, very good. Anyone else seeking recognition? Any other offers of special calls?
No, I will circulate an email on that and get everyone's feedback if the majority of the board wants to do that. The target would be 9 o'clock Tuesday of next week.
Yeah, I think it's a worthy exercise, no doubt. Member Desart.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking for our opinion, Member Larson, it's my opinion that other governmental agencies, municipal agencies, spend hours and hours on workshops. And I wouldn't only be in favor of a special call, but a special call per department in the next several weeks ahead. I mean, I think that's the most open and transparent way to do it. But I mean, if you're offering one special call, I'll take it. But I really think there should be several special calls to just really truly discuss the menu if you want openness and transparency.
Okay. Thank you for that observation. Anyone else seeking recognition on the order of new business? Yes, Mr. Zay.
Personal thing, I just want to say happy anniversary to my wife, 30 years.
Oh my God, she put up with you.
She's a saint, I can tell you for sure, so. Long-suffering wife, exactly.
Yeah, I'll say. Okay. I take it no one else has anything further on the order of new business. We do not have anything to come before us on the order of executive session, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn this meeting of the September session to adjourn to Tuesday, October 13, 2020 at 10 a.m. for passage of the property tax levy pursuant to 35 ILCS 200/18-10. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Meeting adjourned.